Hi everyone, we're Mimicker, here to introduce all kinds of knowledge, even stuff we didn't know about.
It's great to be back, and today we're unpacking a shift that feels like it happened overnight, even though the pot's been boiling for a decade.
It really does. I was looking at the materials for this deep dive, especially the report Border Wars.
Uh-huh.
The radicalization of global anti-overtourism in 2025, and it just struck me.
What about it?
Well, we usually talk about summer travel in terms of, best beaches or hidden gems. It's all about escapism.
That's right.
But looking back at the summer of 2025, the whole vibe wasn't bon voyage. It felt more like the moment the social contract of travel just completely snapped.
That is the perfect way to frame it. We're not talking about over-tourism anymore. That was like the buzzword of the 2010s.
Yeah, an academic problem.
Exactly. An academic problem about, line management at the Louvre.
Huh.
What we saw in 2025 was radicalized anti-tourism. This isn't just grumbling about crowds. This is political action.
A battle for what sociologists call the right to the city.
Precisely.
And that's our mission today. We're going to figure out why, from the streets of Barcelona to the alleys of Kyoto, residents basically declared war on the global travel economy.
And war isn't an exaggeration here. I mean, the report title is literally Border Wars.
We aren't talking military borders, obviously.
No, not military, but definitely territorial and psychological. The data we collect from this report tracks a huge explosion of protests and some really extreme policy changes.
They call them nuclear options.
They do. We're seeing a total breakdown in relations between the people who live in a place and the people who visit it.
So let's start with the big question. Why now? I mean, crowds have been annoying for years. I remember complaining about lines in Rome a decade ago. Why did the powder keg explode in 2025?
To understand the explosion, you really have to look at the fuse.
Okay.
And the fuse was the pandemic. We have to look at the COVID-19 period, say 2020 to 2022, as this massive, unintentional control experiment. It was a glimpse of an alternate reality.
Right. I remember the photos, the clear water in the Venice canals, empty city squares.
Exactly that. For almost 3 years, residents in places like Venice, Amsterdam, Kyoto, they got their cities back. They experienced quiet streets.
And normal prices, I bet.
Shops went back to normal pricing because they had to serve locals to survive. Public spaces actually belonged to the public again. It was a loss and recovery experience. They remembered what their home was supposed to feel like.
They realized the chaos wasn't inevitable.
It was a choice. And then the doors flew open again.
With a vengeance.
Yeah.
Revenge travel.
And they flew open with revenge travel. The crowds came back in 2023 and 2024, but they came back harder, faster, and you could argue more entitled than before.
To make up for lost time.
Right. So residents suffer this kind of psychological whiplash. The gap between the peace we just had and the chaos that just returned, well, it created a level of genuine anger that just didn't exist before.
It's like breaking up with a toxic partner, enjoying your freedom, and then they suddenly move back in with all their stuff.
That's a surprisingly accurate analogy. But there's a hard economic layer here too, not just feelings. The report highlights the privatization of profit versus the socialization of cost.
Okay, break that down for us. That sounds like economists speak for, I get the headache, but someone else gets the money.
That is precisely it. Look at the Canary Islands. The data we collect shows tourism makes up 36% of their GDP.
Wow, that's huge.
On paper, it sounds amazing. But the reality for the actual residents, low wages, a severe housing crisis, and water shortages.
That was the aha moment for me reading this. It's not just, oh, there are too many people on the sidewalk.
Not at all.
It's about survival. When inflation makes a loaf of bread cost a tourist price, or when your apartment building gets swallowed by short-term rentals, it stops being an annoyance.
It becomes an existential threat. And when survival is on the line, tactics change.
Which brings us to the European front, to the water guns in Barcelona.
Yes. June 15th, year 24. That was the day the tactics shifted. A few thousand protesters gathered, but they didn't just hold signs.
No. They took out water guns.
And sprayed tourists who were just eating outdoors at restaurants.
I remember seeing those videos. The outrage online was intense. People saying, I paid to be here. Why are you attacking me?
It was meant to feel personal. It wasn't physically violent, of course. It's just water. But it was symbolically very aggressive.
It shattered the hospitality barrier.
Completely. The message was very clearly, your holidays are my misery. They wanted to break the illusion that the city is just a fun backdrop.
And usually you'd expect the government to step in and apologize, right? Protect the industry.
But not in Barcelona. The mayor actually doubled down. The report calls it the zero option, and it really blew my mind.
This is the rental license thing.
This is the big one. Mayor Jaume Colboni announced that by November 2028, Barcelona is going to cancel all 10,101 existing short-term rental licenses.
Hold on. All of them. Not just limit them, but cancel.
All of them. Zero. Gone. The goal is to force those 10,000 units back into the long-term housing market for residents.
Rents have skyrocketed there, haven't they?
68% in the last decade. The city decided they had to choose, protect tourism or protect their own citizens' ability to find a home.
But the economic fallout from that has to be massive. You can't just delete an entire industry.
It's a huge gamble. The data we collect from a PwC report suggests a potential loss of 1.9 billion euros and maybe 40,000 jobs. But the fact they're willing to take that hit shows you how desperate the situation is. They're saying a city without residents isn't a city, it's a theme park.
Speaking of theme parks, let's talk about Venice. They tried the financial wall, the entry fee, but it seems like it backfired.
It did. They tried standard economics, raised the price, lowered the demand. In 2024, they trialed a €5 entry fee.
Yeah, what happened?
On the days the fee was active, visitor numbers actually went up by about 7,000 people.
So people just paid it.
Of course they did.
Sure.
If you're flying in from the US or China spending thousands already, what's €5? It's less than a coffee in St. Mark's Square.
It deters no one.
So in 2025, they doubled down. The fee went up to €10 if you don't book 4 days ahead, and they expanded it to 54 days of the year.
But the locals pointed out this psychological twist, this theme parkification.
And this is a crucial insight. When you put up a turnstile and charge a ticket, you're signaling that the place is a product, a thing to be consumed.
Right. I paid my €10, so I'm entitled to be here. I'm a customer.
Exactly. It changes the psychology from being a guest to being a customer. It's Disneyland with better architecture.
And speaking of the physical impact, back to the Canary Islands. You mentioned water shortages. That part of the report was genuinely scary.
This is where it becomes a visceral resource war. You've got luxury hotels filling these huge swimming pools with fresh water.
While local farms are facing drought restrictions.
And the locals didn't just march this time. Activists from the group Canaria se agota, which means Canary Islands are exhausted.
What do?
They went on a hunger strike.
A hunger strike against tourism. That's a level of desperation most travelers can't even imagine.
It really highlights the injustice. It's not just about too many people, it's about the basic elements of life, like water being siphoned off for visitors while the people who live there just dry out.
Okay, so that's Europe using water guns, bans, and taxes. But when we look at Asia, the defense strategies feel different.
Yeah.
More cultural.
There's a cultural shift mentioned in the report from omotenashi to okotowari.
Omotenashi is that famous Japanese concept of wholehearted hospitality, right?
It is. It's why service in Japan is legendary, but okotowari means refusal or declining. Japan wants 60 million tourists by 2030, but the infrastructure just can't handle it, so they're putting up walls.
Both invisible and very, very visible.
The visible one is just wild, the convenience store near Mount Fuji.
The Lawson store. It became a viral photo spot, right?
Yes, because Mount Fuji was perfectly framed in the background, but tourists were blocking traffic, trespassing, leaving trash everywhere, all for that one Instagram shot.
So what did the town do?
They put up a massive black mesh net.
Wait, what?
They physically blocked the view of their own mountain.
I saw the term landscape castration in the notes.
Yeah.
That's so harsh, but I guess I get it.
It is harsh, but it's how some planners describe it. The town had to destroy the visual value of their own home just to restore order. It's a tragic sign that just asking people to be polite doesn't work anymore.
And in Kyoto, they're not just blocking views, they're blocking entire streets.
As of April 2025, tourists are banned from the private alleys in the Jian district, the Geisha district. Walk down a private street, you face a 10,000 yen fine.
They're prioritizing privacy over access.
And they're also hitting people's wallets, but differently than Venice. It's a progressive accommodation tax.
So the more you spend, the more you pay.
Exactly. Starting in 2026, if you're in a luxury stay, the tax can be up to 10,000 yen a night. It targets the high-end traveler, not the backpacker.
Now, South Korea has done something that sounds almost like a curfew for tourists.
It is a tourist curfew. In the Buksan Hanak village in Seoul, it's a beautiful, historic neighborhood, but people actually live in those houses.
And the noise got to be too much.
Unbearable. So they created a red zone. Tourists are only allowed in between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m.
And if you're there after 5?
You get fined 100,000 won, about $76.
I bet the local shop owners hate that. If you run a cafe, you just lost all your evening business.
They do. It's a classic conflict over time usage rights. Residents want quiet evenings. Merchants want customers. The government sided with the residents' right to sleep.
We've been talking about tourists who come for a week and leave, but there's another group the report highlights that might be even more controversial.
The digital nomads. This is a crucial shift. We're not just talking about visitors. We're talking about what some are calling soft colonialism.
That is a heavy term, soft colonialism.
It's provocative, but look at the mechanics in a place like Mexico City, in neighborhoods like Roma or Condesa.
Okay.
You have tech workers earning Silicon Valley salaries moving in. They can pay 3 times the local rent without even blinking.
Which prices out the locals immediately. A family that's been there for generations can't compete with a San Francisco paycheck.
Not at all. And it changes the culture. The local taco stand gets replaced by a $15 avocado toast spot. The protests there have been visceral.
Slogans like, "Gringo go home."
Exactly. Mexico is for Mexicans. It's a class war disguised as a culture war. And the irony is, for a while, countries were begging for these people.
Come work from our beach.
But the data we collect shows a major policy reversal. Portugal is the prime example. They had that non-habitual resident tax scheme, the NHR, a huge tax break for expats.
And they ended it.
They ended in 2024. They realized the math didn't work socially. The tax revenue wasn't worth tearing up the housing market. They decided affordable housing for their own citizens was more important.
I want to pivot to the invisible hand driving all this. The algorithms.
The algorithm problem is massive. 75% of tourists now choose where to go based on social media. This creates viral congestion.
Is that when everyone goes to the same spot because of one TikTok video?
That's it. The algorithm rewards visual impact. So a quiet, beautiful spot gets millions of views and suddenly thousands of people show up in one weekend. The infrastructure can't handle it.
And then there's the dupe trend. If you can't afford the Maldives, go to Albania.
Right. Influencers push these dupes cheaper alternatives. It sounds helpful, but all it does is export over-tourism to places with even weaker infrastructure.
You're not solving the problem. You're just moving it.
It's like trying to put out a fire by throwing the burning logs into your neighbor's yard.
The report also touches on how this is playing out politically. It seems like everyone is angry, but for very different reasons.
It's the horseshoe theory in action. On the left, in places like Spain, anti-tourism is framed as an anti-capitalist fight for housing rights.
And on the right.
On the right, say in Germany, it's framed as identity defense, using rhetoric like too many foreigners to fuel nativist agendas. So whether you're on the hard left or the hard right.
The tourist is the enemy.
Sadly, yes. And technology is making this us versus them dynamic even worse. We're seeing gaijin shaming in Japan.
Gaijin means foreigner. What's the shaming part?
Locals are posting videos of tourists behaving badly, drinking on the street, being loud to shame them online. It just deepens the psychological divide.
So let's pull all this together. Looking toward 2030, the report suggests the era of cheap, easy, welcomed travel is pretty much dead.
It certainly looks that way. Based on these trends, we are looking at 3 possible futures for travel.
Walk us through them.
First is elitism. This is the Venice and Kyoto model. Only the rich will be able to afford the entry fees and the luxury taxes. Travel becomes a luxury good again, like it was in the 1950s.
So we give it the privilege of class, the grand tour for the 1%. What's the second future?
Second is degrowth. This is the Barcelona model. Cities actively choosing fewer visitors over more money. They're accepting a smaller economy in exchange for a livable city.
And the third?
The third is what I call guilt tourism. This is the psychological shift. The idea that visitors will constantly need to prove they're worthy to enter a space.
So you're a suspect until proven innocent.
You have to tread lightly, apologize for your presence, constantly show you aren't one of the bad ones.
It sounds exhausting, but maybe necessary.
It might be the only way to keep borders open at all. If we don't behave better, the walls will just get higher.
It really makes you think. We've grown up thinking travel is a right. You buy a ticket, you go. But this border war reminds us of a hard truth. Every tourist destination is first and foremost someone's home.
Exactly. And that home has to function for the people living in it, or they will lock the doors.
The walls are going up, black screens, entry fees, legal bans. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Are we witnessing the end of the right to travel? Or just the end of the right to travel without consequences?
That is the question that's going to define the next decade.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification bell.